We were celebrating our 23rd wedding anniversary at this cozy Italian place, the kind with low lights and soft music. Our closest friends and family filled the table, and I lifted my glass high to toast the woman I'd loved for more than 2 decades. Her name was Harper, blonde, confident, with a smile she always put on whenever there was a camera around, or whenever she wanted to talk me into buying something pricey. That night she looked incredible, dressed in a burgundy gown that fit her like it was made for her. My hand shook just a little as I raised my champagne glass. The whole scene looked picture-perfect, almost too perfect. Golden light bounced off the wine glasses, laughter carried across the polished walls, and the band played what used to be our song. I excused myself and headed for the restroom. That's where the night started to fall apart. As I was washing my hands, the door creaked open and in walked a woman in a dark green dress. She wasn't staff, and I had never seen her before. She scanned the room quickly, then leaned in close and whispered, "Your wife? She slipped something into your drink." My chest went cold. She continued. I saw her tear open a packet and stir it in when nobody was watching. I stared at her, waiting for some kind of punchline. She laughed like it was a joke, but I didn't find it funny. I stepped around her and back into the hallway, but it felt like I was walking in slow motion. The hall stretched on forever, every footstep echoing louder than it should, my breathing shallow and uneven. When I got back to the table, Harper was laughing with Mason, her brother-in-law, or at least that's what I thought at the time. She reached for her glass just as I sat down, but I was quicker. With one smooth, quiet motion, I switched our glasses. It felt like I had just pulled the pin on a grenade, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. I forced a smile, kept my voice steady. She tapped her glass against mine and whispered, "To forever." Coming from her, that was almost funny. 12 minutes later, as the waiter set down dessert, I noticed her blinking too much. Her mascara smudged. Her laugh got too loud at something Mason said, and when she tried to stand, her legs gave out. The whole restaurant went dead silent. "Whoa, babe," I said, catching her in my arms. "You okay?" She slurred something I couldn't make out, her jaw slack, her pupils glazed over. I eased her back into her chair, and people assumed she'd just overdone it with champagne. But I knew better. I knew she'd been trying to drug me, and now she was the one feeling the effects. A few people chuckled, tossing out jokes about anniversary shots sneaking up too fast, but I didn't laugh. I kept my eyes on her as she leaned instinctively against Mason's shoulder. That's when it all clicked into place. I had trusted her blindly, ignored every red flag. The sly smirks, the weird text messages, the late nights at the gym. But now the mask slipped, and what stared back at me was a woman who had quietly, methodically grown to hate me. I didn't call her out. Not yet. Not in front of our kids or everyone else sitting at that table. But something inside me snapped. Under the table, I pulled out my phone and sent a message to Grant, an old buddy of mine who happened to be a private investigator. "I need everything," I typed. Harper, Mason, tap their phones, track their cars, hidden cameras. I want it all. The waitress came over, smiling politely. "Would you like the check?" I gave her the warmest smile I could manage. "Oh no, we're just getting started." Harper sat slumped beside me, eyelids heavy, mumbling something that sounded like Mason's name. I squeezed her hand gently. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "don't fall asleep on our big night." She tried to smile back but couldn't pull it off. She had no idea I'd caught her. Not yet. But I promised myself this would be the last time she smiled at me without consequence. If she thought this was just another fancy dinner, she had no idea what kind of hell she just stepped into. On the way home, she barely said a word. Her head rested against the window, eyes half closed. I played the role of the good husband for the kids, buckling her in, telling them she probably mixed her medication with wine again. Technically, that wasn't even a lie this time. In the rearview mirror, I caught Mason tapping away on his phone like the night couldn't end fast enough. His thumbs moved so quick it looked like sparks might fly. I made a mental note to have Grant pull his records. Not long after, Grant replied with a simple thumbs up. That was enough for me. When we got home, I walked Harper upstairs and laid her on the bed. She collapsed in a heap, her dress wrinkled, her hair a mess, her perfume no longer inviting. I pulled the covers over her, watching how small and harmless she looked lying there. But I knew better. Nothing about her was harmless anymore. As soon as the bedroom door clicked shut, I slipped into the garage where I'd stashed a bugging kit. I'd bought it months earlier, thinking I was being paranoid. Turned out I hadn't been paranoid enough. I started with her car, a shiny white Lexus I'd given her last Christmas. I tucked a tracker under the dashboard. Then I checked her gym bag, expecting sneakers and yoga pants. Instead, I found a burner phone wrapped inside her leggings. I didn't turn it on or touch it, just snapped a few photos. Solid evidence. Around 1 in the morning, I went back upstairs. She was out cold, snoring softly. I stood there staring at her. 23 years together, and this was her anniversary gift to me. The next morning, she came down bright-eyed, acting like nothing had happened. "What was wrong with me last night?" she asked, sipping her black coffee. "Felt like I got run over by a truck." "You probably drank too fast," I said flatly. She just laughed, shrugged, and leaned in to kiss my cheek. I let her, for now. The next 3 days, I played the devoted husband while Grant delivered the goods. Call logs, hotel receipts, video evidence. Turned out, Harper and Mason had been renting a hotel suite once a week, every Thursday, for the last 4 months. Always the same place, always under fake names. She even used an old college ID to check in. Room service told its own story: champagne, strawberries, massage oil. She had planned it all with precision. There was even video footage. I saw them in the hallway, her laughing with her head tossed back, pressing close to him the way she hadn't done with me in years. I made myself watch every second of it. Not because I needed proof, but because I wanted the pain to sear into me. I didn't want to numb it. I wanted to remember. When it came time to confront them, I didn't explode. I didn't shout or throw things. That would have been too easy for her, a way to paint me as the villain. Instead, I waited until Sunday brunch at our house. Mason was there, along with his wife Stella, their kids, my daughter Avery, and my son Caleb. I stood up in the middle of the meal, raised my glass again, and repeated the toast from the restaurant. "To 23 years, I said, locking eyes with Harper. Everyone clapped, lifted their glasses. Then I added, "And to the man who's been keeping my wife company every Thursday afternoon. Mason, how's that hotel suite treating you?" The room froze. Forks stopped midair. Avery's face went pale. Stella dropped her coffee cup. Harper blinked slowly, like she hadn't heard me right. Mason opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. I looked straight at Mason. "I've got receipts, man. Video logs. You even signed for room service under her fake name." And Harper. I slid a photo across the table, one of her laughing, hair damp and wrapped in a towel. "That's a nice look on you. Funny you never showed me that side." Her face didn't fall apart like a guilty person's should have. No tears, no shame. She just rolled her eyes like a bratty teenager. "Oh, grow up," she said, pushing her chair back. "It's not like we've been in love for years." The room went still. Everyone was staring at her. "Don't look surprised," she continued. "You've been boring since, what, 2015? I blinked at her, stunned. "And that makes it okay to drug me?" I asked. She crossed her arms. "That was just to take the edge off. Calm you down. God, you're so dramatic." Could have lost it right then. But instead, I reached for the envelope I'd been holding back. Inside were divorce papers, financial breakdowns, even printed copies of her messages with Mason. I laid it all out, neat as evidence in a courtroom. Her world started crumbling in real time. Family turned away, disgust written all over their faces. Mason's skin went pale as chalk. And me? I just stood, gathered myself, and walked out. Not because I was weak, because I was done being played for a fool. She came after me barefoot, her voice sharp as glass shards. "Oh, so now you're the victim," she sneered, "parading around like some hero just because you embarrassed me in front of everyone. Real mature, Noah." I didn't slow down. The night air cooled my skin, but my chest burned hot. She caught my arm. "You think you can just walk away from me after everything? After all I gave up for you?" I spun around and met her eyes head-on. "And what exactly did you give up, Harper? Loyalty? Respect? Or maybe just your Thursday afternoons with my brother-in-law?" Not a flicker of guilt crossed her face. Just pure venom. "I should have left years ago," she spat. "You were safe. Predictable. Paycheck. But watching you sit at that stupid desk night after night made me feel like I was suffocating." "You mean the desk that paid for your Lexus? The vacations? Avery's private school?" I shot back. She smirked like she'd already won. You don't get it. You never did. You're the kind of man women settle for, not crave. That one hit deeper than I wanted to admit. Maybe because I'd thought it myself once or twice. She wasn't done. Her voice rose. I stayed because it was easy. Don't fool yourself into thinking you were some prize. You were a job. And I needed a break from working a real one. I clenched my fists. Not because I wanted to hit her, but because I wanted to scream. Instead, I stayed silent. I walked over to my car, popped the trunk, and pulled out a small suitcase. I packed it that morning just in case. Her arms crossed, smug. You're leaving. No, I said evenly. You are. She barked out a laugh. This is my house. I pulled a folded document from my bag. The deed transfer I'd filed months earlier when I first noticed the red flags. Not anymore. Her laugh died quick. I saw this storm coming, I told her. While you were busy sneaking around with Mason, I was preparing. So here's the deal. You're packing a bag, you're leaving tonight, and you're signing those divorce papers. No alimony because I've got the texts, the videos, and the little stunt you tried to pull with my drink. Everything. For the first time all night, her face fell. If you push me, Harper, I'll burn what's left of your reputation to ashes. Your job, your friends, the image you cling to. I'll make sure you're remembered, but not the way you want. So don't test me. Not today. She looked at me like she was seeing a stranger. You're not the man I married, she whispered. You're right, I said. That man would have begged you to stay, but he died the moment you chose Mason. I turned and walked inside, leaving her standing there in the driveway. I didn't care where she went or who she called. The part of me that once clung to her, prayed she'd come around, that part was gone. Upstairs, Avery sat on her bed, knees tucked to her chest. You okay, Dad? She asked quietly. I nodded, swallowing hard. I will be. She looked like she wanted to ask more, but I didn't have the strength to spell it out, that her mom had betrayed us all. Instead, I sat beside her, wrapped my arm around her shoulders, and we just sat in silence. Downstairs, the front door slammed, and just like that, 23 years of lies walked out of my life. The next morning didn't feel real. The house was quiet. No Harper brewing coffee. No perfume trailing through the hall. No click of high heels on the floor. The place didn't feel empty. It felt disinfected, like her absence had scrubbed the air clean. I sat at the kitchen table staring at a mug of untouched coffee, thinking about all the mornings I'd shared with her, blind to who she really was. Thinking about the nights I'd worked late, believing she appreciated it, when really she was probably curled up with Mason in some hotel I paid for. Avery padded in wearing pajamas, poured herself cereal, and sat across from me. Is Mom coming back? She asked softly. I took a breath. Not to this house. She looked down at her bowl and nodded. I heard her last night. Didn't matter which part. Every word was poison. She's been different for a long time. I just didn't want to face it. Neither did I admitted. The doorbell rang before I could say more. Mason stood there, looking rough. No fake charm, no excuses. He had a faint bruise on his cheek. Stella must have given him that. You said your piece in front of everyone, he muttered. Can we talk? You've got 5 seconds. Noah, man. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. 4. She told me you two were basically roommates. Said you didn't even sleep in the same bed. That she felt trapped. 3. He lifted his hands in surrender. Look, I was stupid. Okay? But I didn't force her. 2. I'm sorry. My jaw tightened. 1. He backed away. Okay. I'm leaving. Good. Because if you ever come near my daughter or set foot on my property again, you won't be walking away next time. He didn't argue, just turned and shuffled off like a stray mutt. And as I watched him leave, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was just disgusted. Deep, bone-deep disgust. By noon, I'd already been on the phone with my lawyer. Harper was served. She hadn't responded yet, but she would. The evidence was attached. Her choice was simple. Sign quietly or get dragged through court. Later that day, Stella called. Can I come by? She asked. She arrived an hour later, alone. No makeup, eyes red, looking more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. I didn't know, she said the second I opened the door. I swear, Noah, I had no idea. I let her in. She sat at the same kitchen table where Harper used to pretend she was browsing Pinterest. Probably texting Mason instead. I kicked him out, she said. Told the kids everything. They deserve the truth. I nodded. I'm sorry it had to come out this way. She shook her head. No, I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. You deserved better. We all did. We sat together in silence, something that had become a theme in my life lately. Silence and a strange new kind of clarity. That night I pulled out old photo albums. Vacations, birthdays, anniversaries, all the memories frozen in time. In every picture, there I was smiling like a fool. And there was Harper, always perfectly posed, but never really looking at me. I shoved everything into a box, slapped the tape across it, and sealed it shut. That was where the past belonged now, boxed up and put away. It was time to build something new. No more lies, no more crocodile tears, no more smug little smirks. I was done with all of that. Tomorrow I'd start fresh. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I gave myself a real day off. No emails, no meetings, no spreadsheets waiting for me. I dropped Avery off at school, and instead of heading to the office like always, I just kept driving. It was just me, the low rumble of the engine, and a silence that didn't feel like loneliness anymore. Felt like freedom. An hour later, I ended up at the lake outside of town. The same one Harper always said was too boring for her. I parked, climbed out of the car, and just stood there for a while. The wind cut sharp, and the air smelled like pine needles and cold water. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could actually breathe. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Grant. She's panicking. Her lawyer called mine. She's trying to negotiate. Of course she was. I didn't even bother replying. Instead, I walked down to the edge of the lake, bent down and skipped a rock across the water. It hopped 5 times before sinking out of sight. Harper probably thought I'd cave, that I'd be terrified of the scandal, or of what it might do to Avery, or of the gossip once the truth got out. But what she never understood was, I wasn't afraid of losing her. I was afraid of becoming the man who stayed after knowing what I knew. Not anymore. When I got back home, a package was waiting on the front step. No return address. I brought it inside and opened it slowly. Inside was an envelope handwritten. For when you're ready. I knew the handwriting instantly, Harper's. Against my better judgment, I opened it. 6 pages, rambling and defensive. She blamed stress, boredom, even me. Then she dropped the real bomb. Mason wasn't the first. There had been others. Strangers I'd never even heard of. She said she felt trapped inside the perfection I built. Like I'd put her in a golden cage. Her words, not mine. She claimed she still loved me, just not the same way. Said she hoped I'd understand someday. No apology. No shame. I fed it to the fire. That night, I sat Avery down. I had to tell her more. Not the dirty details, not the drugs, the hotels, but the truth. Your mom and I are getting divorced, I said carefully. She didn't cry. She just gave me a little nod. I figured. I want you to know it's not your fault. None of it. I know, she whispered. Then, after a pause, she asked, can I stay with you? That almost broke me. You'll always have a home with me, I told her. Always. The next week was nothing but paperwork, lawyers, and quiet nights at home. Stella came by a few times. We talked. Not about the past, not about Mason, but about books, music, silly little things that didn't hurt. When Avery got sick, she brought soup. One night she stayed late, and after Avery went to bed, we sat on the couch talking until we both nodded off sitting up. It wasn't romance. It was something better. Real. A kind of calm I hadn't felt in years. Harper made one last attempt. She showed up at the door, uninvited, tears rolling and her voice shaking, asking if we could start over. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just looked her dead in the eye and said, you ended this, Harper. I'm only here to bury it. She left without another word. I stood at the window, watched her taillights vanish into the dark, and knew deep down it was truly over. Weeks drifted by. The house started to change. It felt lighter, warmer. Without Harper's constant tension poisoning the air, even the walls seemed to breathe easier. I started sleeping through the night. Avery did too. Slowly, her laughter came back. Hesitant at first, but real. One weekend, she even invited a friend over. The silence stopped being heavy. It started to feel like peace. I redid the bedroom, not to spite Harper, out of necessity. I tore down her framed photos, tossed the scented candles she never lit, got rid of the fancy silk pillows she bought just for looks. I replaced it all with things that felt like me and Avery. Family pictures, softer lights, a blanket she helped me pick out. She looked around and said the room didn't feel fake anymore. I knew exactly what she meant. One evening, I found myself sitting on the porch with a glass of bourbon, staring at the stars. I hadn't done that since the early years of our marriage, before Harper convinced me it was a waste of time. She always wanted something: attention, praise, money, status, validation. But never stillness. Peace bored her. That's the part one kept missing, until it screamed at me in her absence. That same night, Stella texted, "You up?" I replied, "Yeah." On the porch. 10 minutes later she showed up, hoodie and jeans. No makeup, no mask. She just sat with me. At first we didn't say much. The night breeze was soft, and the moon hung low like it was keeping its own secrets. After a while she said, "You know, I think Mason was always jealous of you." I let out a short laugh. Strange way of showing it. He wanted your life, the respect, the steadiness. He just didn't want to earn it. We sat a little longer. Then I asked, "And you? You holding up?" "I will be," she said. Then she added, "I hated her, you know, for the way she treated you even before the cheating. You just didn't see it. Or maybe you did and you didn't want to believe it." I looked at her and said, "I wanted to believe in her more than she deserved. She didn't deserve half of you." I turned away. "Well, she got all of me for 23 years. And now?" Stella asked softly. "Now?" I said, "I rebuild." She smiled, small but real. A few days later, the divorce was finalized. No courtroom drama, no dragged-out war. She signed it all. Probably thought it made her look noble. Truth was, she just didn't want the truth paraded in public. Her reputation mattered more to her than revenge. I kept the house, full custody of Avery, and most of what we built together. She walked away with her Lexus, her lies, and a condo I couldn't care less about. Through her lawyer, she slipped in one last jab. It said, "Maybe one day you'll realize you weren't enough for me. And maybe that's okay." I laughed when I read it. Not because it stung, because it didn't. That woman was already gone. Not just from my house. Not just from my life. From my heart. She could scream into the walls of her empty condo all she wanted. I wasn't listening anymore. The day after the papers were signed, I took Avery out to dinner. Just the two of us. We picked the same Italian place where everything had started. She looked uncertain until I said, "Let's reclaim it." We chose a different table. No family speeches, no fake toasts, no poison. Just pizza, laughter, and stories, the real kind. She asked me about college, and I told her things I'd never shared before. We laughed straight through dessert. As we were leaving, the hostess stopped me. "You've got a great daughter," she said. "I know," I answered. "She's the reason I made it out of hell." Back home, Avery hugged me at the door. "I'm proud of you, Dad," she whispered. "You didn't fall apart." I kissed the top of her head. "That's because you kept me standing." And right there, life started over. Not perfect, but real. A few weeks after the dust finally settled, an envelope showed up in my mailbox. Thick paper, embossed lettering, gold seal, the whole production. At first, I figured it had to be a joke. Maybe some prank from an old buddy or a distant cousin who didn't know any better. But when I slid it open, the smile on my face died instantly. Mason and Harper, engaged. They'd actually sent me an invitation. And if that wasn't enough, Harper had scrawled a little note inside. "No hard feelings. Thought you'd want closure. We'd love for you and Avery to come." There isn't a word in the English language strong enough for what hit me in that moment. I didn't show Avery the invite. She was already carrying enough of Harper's weight on her shoulders. I tossed the envelope in the trash, carried the whole bag to the backyard, and burned it. That night, I told Stella. We were eating dinner on her patio under string lights, the summer air warm and easy. "They sent you an invite?" she asked, her jaw tightening. I nodded. "Guess I'm supposed to stand up and clap for their betrayal now." Stella stared down at her wine. "She's not even embarrassed. That's the scary part." "She never was," I said. "Even when she was caught red-handed, even when I shoved the evidence in front of her. Her conscience had been pawned off a long time ago." Stella gave a bitter laugh. "I used to envy her. Her looks, her confidence, the way she strutted into every room like she owned it. I thought you two had it figured out." "She did own the room," I said quietly. "She just never wanted me standing in it." We ate in silence for a while. Then Stella looked at me and said, "You know, they deserve each other." "Yeah," I muttered. "Like two parasites feeding off the same host." That made her chuckle. And then something shifted. She looked at me differently, softer, like she saw something new. "You're not the same man you were a few months ago," she said. I raised a brow. "That bad, huh?" She shook her head. "Not bad. Free." Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed, not thinking about Harper anymore, but about me. About how close I came to losing myself just trying to hold together something broken. How long I lived in shadows, convincing myself it was only dim light. So I opened my laptop and started writing. Not a rant, not a diary entry. A letter to myself. A reminder. She didn't break you. She freed you. I wrote about all the moments I ignored. The sighs behind her smiles, the excuses, the Thursday evenings. I wrote about how I traded my self-worth for a fake version of stability, mistaking survival for love. And then I wrote what mattered most. You are not her shame. You are not her regret. You are your own resurrection. The next morning, I printed it, folded it, and tucked it in my wallet, just in case I ever forgot. The wedding happened, of course. I didn't go, but word reached me through a mutual friend. An overpriced resort, champagne towers, a fairy tale theme. I didn't show, but I did send a gift. A framed photo from our wedding, sliced clean down the middle. On the back I wrote, "Fairy tales end." This one just took longer than most. I never heard a word back. Months passed. Stella and I kept seeing each other. Slow, steady, nothing forced. Avery grew close to her too. Sometimes I'd hear Avery laugh in a way I hadn't heard in years. We weren't rushing. Neither of us needed saving. We just needed someone who wouldn't flinch when the past came echoing back too loud. One evening, while Avery painted in the living room, Stella leaned in close and whispered, "You're doing good, Noah." I looked around, the peace, the warmth, the steady quiet. "I finally believe it," I said, and I meant it. The year wound down without drama. No explosions, no tearful finales, no last-minute begging at the doorstep. Just peace. Harper disappeared completely. Last I heard, she'd run off to Miami with Mason. The rumors trickled back. Fights, money problems, a canceled honeymoon, even a restraining order from one of his exes. None of it shocked me. I didn't care enough to dig. But sometimes I caught myself wondering, not about her, but about me. How I let it go on so long. How I convinced myself that loyalty meant suffering. That pain proved love. That sitting in her cold silence was just part of being a man. It wasn't. It was weakness dressed up as patience. One night, Avery and I were curled up watching some cheesy old movie, the kind Harper would have mocked halfway through. Avery laughed, leaned her head against my shoulder, and whispered, "You're happier now." I kissed her hair. "So are you." She nodded. "Mom doesn't call much. She's not ready to be the mom you deserve." Avery didn't add anything more. She didn't have to. Her silence wasn't sadness anymore. It was acceptance. That's what healing looks like. Later, after she went to bed, I stepped outside. The stars stretched across a clear sky. No weight pressing down on my chest. Just air. Just now. My phone buzzed. "Stella. Still up?" I wrote back. "Always." She sent me a picture of Avery playing with her niece at the park earlier that day. Simple. Whole. And right then, it hit me. I wasn't waiting for life to return to normal anymore. I had built a new normal. One that didn't revolve around chasing approval or begging for scraps of affection. A life where love wasn't measured by how much pain I could endure, but by the peace I could finally breathe. This story didn't end with revenge, or courtroom fireworks, or Harper falling to her knees begging for forgiveness. It ended with something better. Me, whole again. Not because of her, not because of anyone else, because I finally remembered who I was before I forgot. And if you're sitting here reading this, second-guessing yourself, wondering if you're crazy for noticing the distance, the excuses, the lies, let me tell you, you're not. You're waking up. Don't waste another year trying to glue together shattered trust. You don't need her to fall apart for you to rise. Let her rot in the castle she built out of your pain.